Thanks for joining me again for Journey to Easter. This is our Holy Week series, taking a journey through the final week of the life of Jesus here on the earth. I'm Stephen Cat Perry, host of In Good Faith, and today I'm pleased to be speaking with Leland Spindler, who is Executive Artistic Director of the Lux Choral Society. Leland, thank you for making time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to be here.
This is a choir that I have long admired. They've been on a previous episode with songs about social justice, which was a beautiful concert you did.
Thank you.
So pleased to feature. And Lux Choral Society and Orchestra and other choirs will be performing together on Palm Sunday, April 13th in the Marriott Center. It's open to anyone to come and have a wonderful musical celebrations with some pastoral reflections from local clergy and local academics, just about the meaning of some of the days of Holy Week. Leland, my congregation once decided to remind everybody how important music was to worship, and they organized a Sunday, or rather just didn't organize a Sunday. There was no music. We walked in, it was quiet, no prelude. We sat down. There was no hymn. Someone said a prayer. We had communion. Some people talked. We had a prayer and we left. And nobody felt like it was real church.
That feels so weird.
It does. But then the next week, to make up for it, it was a fully musical program that everybody loved. So What does music mean in worship, and especially Easter?
I think that worship is one of the fundamental purposes of music. When I teach music history classes, I always say that music serves 5 main purposes: worship, celebration, communication, telling our history. Yeah. And I think that's why music is such an integral part to worship, because it helps guide our thoughts and our feelings, not only the text of the music, but the mood of the music and the harmonic progressions of the music. They all do different things to our soul. Yeah. There's such a long, rich history of sacred music around Easter and Holy Week, probably even more of a rich musical legacy around that than there even is around Christmas when it comes to sacred works. And I think it really helps just guide the way that we worship, the way that we feel about the whole week and the journey of the week.
So when you got your master's, you're a choral conductor, and you start this choir, the Lux Choral Society, that's Lux, and maybe talk about the Latin, and then the mission you envisioned for this choir over a decade ago.
Yeah. So I started it in my last year of my master's program, and Lux is Latin for light, and our mission is to share light. We've fine-tuned that mission statement to say that we try and help people feel connected to the divine, feel connected to each other, the divine within us, the divine between us, and the divine that's all around us. And we use music as our vehicle to do that. It's an interfaith mission because every faith tradition has beautiful music. Not all of them have strong choral traditions, so it gets a little bit tricky for us that way. But we wanted to share the beauty of each faith tradition's musical heritage. When you grow up in a strong faith tradition, you forget that there's beautiful music outside of it. And so our goal has been to showcase that all around the world at this point.
Which is really lovely, but especially applicable to this Palm Sunday concert. I know you have some pieces that are from the Catholic tradition, recognizable Protestant hymns, Latter-day Saint hymns, and the children's choir will be there, other choirs joining in. You started a tradition, Easter Reflections, for over a decade now, which is a gift the choir's given to the community. That for some people, I think it won't feel like Easter unless they've gone to that concert.
Yeah. We've had people come from all over the world just to hear our Easter performance. They heard it when they were in the States, and then they've gone back home to Europe or to South America, and they come just for this. It's become an integral part of their worship for Easter. I've been doing Easter performances for over 20 years now. And my very first one, I was living in Europe, and people there have such a strong choral tradition there that they don't really like American choral music. And so the whole purpose of that first Easter performance was to show, hey, we write good stuff too. And then when I moved back to the United States, I moved to Utah, and it was just the opposite. people were too comfortable in hymnody and just the very simplistic hymns that we do here, that they forgot that there's this whole other rich tradition that happens in Europe and throughout the world of classical repertoire. And so the goal has always just been, how can I show people that there's so much beautiful music around Easter time?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing with this year's too. We're showcasing music from gospel spirituals all the way through the Catholic tradition, Anglican tradition. There's the Brethren of Christ tradition. We're trying to showcase as many different styles as we can.
Yeah. A lot of us think, what's a song for Easter? He is risen.
He is risen, a classic.
And that will actually be in the concert, and I think an opportunity not only with the choir and the orchestra, but as an audience to join in.
That's Christ the Lord is risen
Christ
today.
the Lord is risen
today. Yeah, we'll
today.
have a sing-along for that
So
one.
we think of the Easter songs,
Yeah.
but one thing that's going to be so beautiful is you've gone through and thought about the moments in Holy Week, because it's not just the triumph, it's what led up to that, including the sorrow. And I wonder if you would introduce a piece that actually was written for your group.
Yeah, we have this great piece called In That Darkest Night, and the poetry was done by Daniel Smith, who is a current Lux member, and the music was written by Johnny C. Levitt. And it is just this beautiful text that sets the scene of Christ in nature, praying, asking for relief, God sending an angel to help. And one of my favorite lines is, salvation great enough for all, still small enough for even me. And I think that's such a beautiful representation of what the atonement is all about, what Christ suffered in the garden for, this redemption that's for all creation, but it's personal enough that it affects me on an individual basis. And it is just one of the most exquisite choral pieces around the garden that I've ever heard.
That's a very poignant moment, Garden of Gethsemane. Another one is, this is from the Catholic tradition, Tenebrae. First, what does the word mean, and how does that fit into Holy Week?
Yeah, Tenebrae facte sunt is by Michael Haydn, who is the younger brother of Franz Joseph Haydn, the father of the symphony and the father of the string quartet. Less known, but I think just as beautiful a composer. Tenebrae facte sunt means, and there was darkness. And this is the scene of Christ on the cross. And he says, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? And into thy hands I commend my spirit. And it's moody in that classical era kind of way. And it's just beautifully written harmonic structure. In that time period, we would have expected a little bit more play between polyphony and homophony, but it's fairly homophonic the whole way through, which is to say that we sing similar rhythms the whole way through. That's such a poignant choice because Haydn purposefully removes music as a distraction to the words and said, I want you to focus on these words of Christ.
You also have a couple of premiere arrangements happening.
Yeah.
Tell me about those.
We do. One is by John Levitt, who we talked about before. We're premiering his version of Gethsemane by Roger and Melanie Hoffman originally. And it is just this exquisite, almost impressionist, moody string setting with almost unison male voices, a little bit of harmony. But it is beautifully written and wonderfully poignant. And I think that you'll hear it in a new way, which I'm really excited about. And the second premiere we're doing is All Creatures of Our God and King by Stephen Nelson from Gentry. He also writes for Matt and Savannah Shaw and has really developed a reputation of fine arranging and orchestrating and composing. And it is a real kick in the pants. It's really fun. It's a really lively setting. It's got some real color and some surprises in it, and I think people will really enjoy it.
And then we do get to a grand finale, and that there was triumph at the end of that difficult week. So you have several pieces, including He is Risen. Tell me about that particular arrangement.
This arrangement, ironically, is also done by a former Lux member named Zane Harker. And it is the normal version of He is Risen that you know at the beginning and the end. And in the middle, it has a bit more reflection. It sets the scene of Mary asking, or seeing the risen Christ and asking who he is. And him saying, woman, you know me, and I've ascended. And then it re-enters the He is Risen that we all know. It's in a mixed meter, a kind of an asymmetric dancey feel versus the really simple 4/4 version that we all know. It's in compound time, so it has this dance quality to it that's really exciting.
That seems kind of joyful, too.
Yeah. There's something really ironic about mixed asymmetric or compound meter that just adds this real dance-like quality, even though you would never be able to actually dance to it. So it's something that has been a tradition for us for the last 9 years, and really excited to keep that tradition going.
This is impossible, but I'll ask anyway. Do you have a favorite piece for Easter? If they said, you get to do one number, is there something you'd pick?
I can say two that are really dear to my heart. One is that In the Darkest Night, and the other is How Great Thou Art, which is Eastery in feel, although I don't think we often use it that way. My grandparents were the only really musical ones in my family, and I used to stay with my grandparents over the summer, and instead of having an alarm clock, they would come in and sing to me until I woke up. And my grandpa would always sing the melody, and my grandma would always harmonize, and that was one of their go-to songs. And when I moved back to the United States, my grandma had Alzheimer's and was dying, and it was the last song that she sang to us before she died.
Wow.
And so it's very tender and dear to my heart, and I think that there's such phenomenal arrangements now that it helps me feel connected to my grandma. And as I've done Easter choirs for these last 20 years, I always feel her conduct with me. She was a conductor, and when I program, I always ask my grandma for advice, and I ask her if she likes the programming. She was a very dramatic woman from the South, and so she knows how to get people engaged and get people excited, and she's always with me when I conduct, and she brings her choir friends from the other side to sing with us.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Leland, there are lots of different types of choirs that do different kinds of music, and we're glad for all of them. But you chose from the get-go, Luke's will be this particular kind.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I grew up in a faith tradition that touches all aspects of your social life. And when I didn't feel like I belonged anymore in my faith tradition, and that was really hard because I lost a lot of friends with that transition and that journey, I needed to feel like there was a way that I could still worship, that there was a way that I could still feel connected to God, and that I could still share the gifts that I think that He's given me in a way that would please the divine. And so I started a choir where I could do that, and other people that felt similarly could do that. And Luke's is a mix of people who have had total faith crises to people who have always been secure in their faith and never questioned. And we find a place where we can work together and share together and collaborate and help people feel connected.
Which just adds the meaning.
Yeah.
Adds meaning to it.
Exactly.
And I hope you will be part of the Palm Sunday concert. You can come to the Marriott Center. It's open to anyone in the community. Lux Choral Society, orchestra, and other choral groups and friends will be there. Different pastors and different lay people and scholars from different faith traditions will talk about each of the days in Holy Week. I am so excited about this event, but also that we can go a little more in depth in this podcast series. I hope you listen to each of the Journey to Easter episodes on In Good Faith. Thanks to Leland Spindler for sharing thoughts on the music of Holy Week and Easter. Subscribe to In Good Faith to hear the whole series, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. In Good Faith is a production of BYU Radio. And Leland, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here again.